You wonder why. You always end up sitting on the edge of the bed in the middle of the night, feeling either completely suffocated by the person sleeping next to you, or absolutely terrified that they are already packing their bags in their mind. You think you are simply unlucky in love, or perhaps flawed at your core, but the truth is, you are executing a silent, invisible script drawn up long before you ever knew what romance was. If you want to finally rewrite that script and understand the quiet, powerful forces shaping your emotional life, I invite you to subscribe to the Psyche Unfolding channel right now. Stay with me, because tonight we are going to look at the real reason you love the way you do, and how you can finally break free. Let us start by walking into the darkest rooms of your heart. Let us start with the hunger. You know this feeling intimately. It is that physical tightening in your chest when a message goes unanswered for a few hours. It is the sudden drop in your stomach when their tone of voice shifts by a fraction of a degree. When you operate from this place, you become a frantic detective of their micro-expressions, reading absolute disaster into a quiet, tired afternoon. When you love someone, you want to merge with them entirely. You build a massive, beautiful bridge to their island, but instead of walking across it side by side, you try to drag their island crashing into yours. You feel that if you let go of your grip for even one single second, they will drift away into the endless fog. It feels like you are treading water in a dark, freezing ocean, and they are the only piece of driftwood keeping you from sinking into the abyss. You squeeze too hard. You ask for reassurance over and over again, but the reassurance is like pouring clear water into a glass with a crack at the bottom. It holds the liquid for a fleeting moment, offering you a brief sigh of relief, and then the emptiness returns. You are exhausted by your own desperation. You tell yourself that you just love too much, that you care more deeply than anyone else in this cold world. But beneath that noble sacrifice is a trembling child who is absolutely convinced that they are about to be left behind. You try to control their distance, trying to pull them back with a rope, not realizing that the rope is wrapping around their neck. But perhaps your pain looks very different. Perhaps you are the one who starts feeling completely breathless when the walls of intimacy begin to close in. At the very beginning, the romance is beautiful. You are charming, you are present, you are swept up in the golden warmth of connection. But the moment the bond solidifies, the moment they look at you with that heavy, expectant gaze of true reliance, a deafening alarm bell rings in your mind. Suddenly, their presence feels like a thick wool blanket thrown over you on a sweltering summer day. You need air. You start finding tiny, insignificant flaws in them. The way they chew their food, the way they laugh too loudly, the way they ask about your day with too much eagerness. These tiny cracks become massive canyons in your mind, perfectly justifying your desperate need to take a step back. You convince yourself that you are just fiercely independent, that you just need your sacred space, and that they are simply too needy. You retreat into your fortress and pull up the heavy wooden drawbridge. Behind your thick stone walls, you feel safe, in control, and perfectly alone. But in the quiet, creeping hours of the night, when the armor comes off and the world is asleep, there is a hollow, haunting echo in that fortress. You look out from the highest tower and wonder why everyone else seems to be able to build a warm fire with someone else, while you are always standing out in the cold, stubbornly insisting that you prefer the frost. You mistake distance for peace, and you mistake isolation for true strength. And then there is the most chaotic, agonizing landscape of all. The torn map. You crave deep, merging closeness more than anything in the world, but the moment someone actually offers it to you, you strike them down. You are a sprawling house with all the doors and windows thrown wide open, begging for visitors to come and warm the halls. But the moment a guest steps onto the porch, you release a pack of wild dogs into the corridor. You pull them close, crying that you need them, and when they finally hold you, you push them away with venom, accusing them of trying to trap you. It is a tormenting pendulum swinging violently between starving for affection and being completely nauseated by it. You are terrified of being left, and equally terrified of being loved. Your nervous system is constantly preparing for a fatal collision, driving down the highway with one foot slammed on the gas pedal and the other foot slammed heavily on the brake. The engine is screaming, smoking, tearing itself apart from the inside. You leave a trail of confusion behind you, but nobody is more confused and heartbroken than you are. Why do you do this? Why do you systematically sabotage the very warmth you spend your entire life searching for? I want you to listen to me very carefully right now. This is not a defect in your soul. You are not broken, and you are not cursed. You are simply executing a brilliant survival strategy that you learned perfectly in the very first rooms you ever lived in. Imagine yourself as a very small, fragile child, arriving in a giant world you do not understand. Your only mechanism for surviving is the towering figures who feed you, clothe you, and hold you. You observe them with a brilliant, unconscious intensity. If your caretakers were unpredictable, if they sometimes smothered you with love and other times completely ignored your cries, you learned a very specific lesson. You learned that love is a scarce, unreliable resource, a flickering candle in a bitter wind. So you decided to become hyper-vigilant. You became the eternal guardian of the flame, always watching the wind, always screaming to make sure they do not forget you are there. You learned that you have to earn your right to exist every single day. If, however, those giant figures were cold, dismissive, or completely overwhelmed by their own shadows, and your cries were met with a deafening silence, you learned a very different lesson. You realized that reaching out brings no relief. It only brings the sharp, burning pain of rejection. So, with a tragic brilliance, You taught yourself to stop needing. You turned off the emotional receptors. You decided that you would be your own entire universe, perfectly self-contained. You became the island. You built a wall 10 meters high around your heart, ensuring that no one could ever get close enough to disappoint you again. And if those figures were not only unpredictable, but actually a source of profound fear, your young mind shattered into a paradox. The very person you needed to run toward for absolute safety was the exact same person you needed to run away from to survive. The map tore in half. You learned that love and danger are the exact same thing. You see, the way you love today is just a mirror reflecting the weather of your earliest days. You are walking through your adult life, wearing the heavy iron armor you forged in a long-forgotten war. But the war is over. You are wearing a thick winter coat in the middle of a beautiful spring afternoon, wondering why you are sweating, exhausted, and unable to feel the gentle breeze on your skin. You are reacting to ghosts. You are fighting shadows that disappeared decades ago. This work of unspooling your past and confronting these ghosts is perhaps the most courageous thing you will ever do in your entire life. If you are finding a sense of comfort and clarity in this journey, please take a moment to subscribe to the Psyche Unfolding channel so we can keep untangling these deep knots together, week after week. It is time to take the heavy armor off. You do not have to be a lifelong prisoner of your own history. The human mind is not a monument carved in cold, dead stone. It is a living, breathing forest. You can plant entirely new seeds. You can forge a completely new path through the thicket. Healing begins with a brutal but incredibly beautiful honesty. It begins with noticing the tightening in your chest, the sudden urge to run away, or the desperate urge to cling, and then pausing, just for one single second. Between the trigger and your automatic reaction, there is a tiny, quiet space. In that invisible space lies your entire freedom. When the silence falls in a room and you want to send that 14th anxious message to ask if they still care about you, I want you to stop. Breathe in deeply. Recognize that the panic rising in your throat is an echo from a ghost, not the reality of the person sitting a few kilometers away. Remind yourself that silence is not an abandonment. Silence is just silence. When they reach out to hold your hand, and you feel that sudden, suffocating urge to pull your arm away and go lock yourself in a dark room, stay right where you are. Tolerate the warmth for just 10 seconds longer. Teach your frightened nervous system that intimacy is not a trap designed to crush you, but rather a soft, gentle place to land when you are tired. You can earn a new kind of security. It takes patience, and it takes falling down and getting back up 100 times, but it is entirely possible. Imagine what it would feel like to love from a place of deep, unwavering peace. Picture a connection that does not feel like a frantic rescue mission in a violent thunderstorm, but rather like two sturdy ancient trees growing side by side in a sunlit valley. Their roots do not strangle each other beneath the soil, but they share the exact same quiet earth. Their branches brush against each other in the wind, but they stand independently strong. You can reach a point where another person shifting their mood does not feel like a final verdict on your fundamental worth. You can reach a point where you do not need to build massive walls to feel safe, because your absolute safety comes from a deeply rooted, unshakable knowledge that you belong entirely to yourself. You are the architect of your own sanctuary now. You are allowed to let the guard down. The people who are truly meant to be in your life will not punish you for the scars you carry. They will not ask you to hide the parts of yourself that are still healing. They will sit with you in the tall grass, point out the silver constellations in the night sky, and they will still be there when the morning sun crests the horizon. You do not have to perform anymore. You do not have to run away before they can leave you, and you absolutely do not have to beg for crumbs of affection. You just have to stand still, take a very deep breath, and finally put down that incredibly heavy backpack you have been carrying across 1,000 kilometers of rough terrain. You are safe now. The storm has passed. You are entirely worthy of a love that feels like a quiet, sunlit Sunday morning. You just have to be brave enough to let the light in.